from the Prince Edward Group.
Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Brenda. Hi, Brenda. I'm a member of the Prince Edward Group out in Etobicoke, and I'm here to talk a little bit about keeping it fresh, and hopefully there'll be some ideas and experience that were part of my sobriety that might help some of you. And I was really grateful for Katie's talk on Friday night because she touched on something that's in my notes here, which I can't read my own handwriting, so it's just my security blanket that I have here in case I get stuck. But if you know me, I'm not usually at a loss for words or opinions. So, but she touched on the chronological factor of AA, and I got sober in my late 20s, early 30s, and it was very different then. For what I needed to keep recovery fresh. And my experience was that a lot changed when I stopped drinking. Like, just not drinking changed a whole bunch. I crawled through the doors of AA, and I embraced and fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was relieved that I had a disease, and I took as many or all of the suggestions and more to maximize the chances of my recovery and staying sober. And so what I did was I went to a ton of meetings. I did lots of steps. I got a sponsor. I went to therapy. I went to group therapy. I did service work. I did some things in early sobriety that kept it fresh, because how I did that was by doing new things that I had only done when I was drinking or never done. And some of the things that sobriety enabled me to try, I learned to play tennis, and I went back to school. And the school thing was really humbling for me because I couldn't do it. I got like 2 credits in a year for 3 or 4 years, and it was really hard. But what that did when I went back to school in sobriety, it showed me that, well, it erased my judgment that, oh, it's easy, I could have been that person. All those stories I told myself in a blackout in the basement drinking and smoking. No, I gained a lot of respect for the people who went through and suffered and sacrificed and got a degree and went on to, because it was really hard. It was really hard, and it wasn't something that I was able to do. Certainly sobriety was a bit... Well, I remember my sponsor saying, I remember I had some opinions, and it was like, I didn't get sober to spend my life in church basements and that. And she, I thank God for her today, because she said, that's right, Brenda, you didn't. So you got sober so you could go out and live your life, and just be grateful for all those people who are in those church basements opening the meeting for you to come in and out of while you go live your life, because that is a really important part of AA. And so I was able to embrace the fact that I was at what I thought was young, although there's a lot of younger people coming through the doors these days, and back then. But I was able to piggyback my sobriety on all of the hopes and dreams and goals that I had abandoned in my teenage years or never even had. And I genuinely believe that I started drinking, the speakers last night, I was 12. I was, I was sneaking beers and sips, and I remember my dad's 40th birthday party, and we were cleaning up, and I was drinking all the leftovers at the bottom. I don't really remember getting drunk, but it was certainly an attractive thing. So I didn't really start drinking a lot until, grade 8 or high school, and that was when the seriousness of alcoholism genuinely took over. So those were some of the things in early sobriety, and what I did was I wanted to travel, and so I piggybacked. I learned to Google all the conferences all over North America and the world for AA, and I piggybacked my travel around conferences, and the secret was you could book the discounted hotel rooms before and after. So I would bring my parents. I would, go to conferences. I went to Hawaii and Florida and South America. And I decided that this was a way that I could serve both. I could have the support of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I could see the world at the same time. And that was a really important thing. And it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of recovery that happened in that venue and that experience. So by the time I reached sort of my well, actually, let me step back a bit. The other thing that happened when I first got sober, and I genuinely believe that I stopped developing emotionally when I started drinking. So I went through my emotional adolescence in sobriety. And I learned how to date, and I learned how to have relationships, and I got my heart broken, and I did that over and over and over again because that was what you do when you're a teenager. I was 30, but it was what I did, and it was a way to again just feel like I was growing up. And if I could, I often reflect, and even now, a big part of what sobriety and Alcoholics Anonymous is about growing up emotionally, growing up physically, taking responsibility, putting yourself second, and just doing the grown-up things that I just never thought you had to do when I was drinking, and I didn't do when I was drinking. It was all about me and whatever else was going to get me through to the next day. So by the time I hit my mid-30s, I had a revelation. It was a new experience for me, and I wanted a family and motherhood. And up until then, I had never wanted children. And I believed that it was because I was just too self-centered. I can't even take care of myself. How could I possibly take care of, a child or want one? Why would anyone want one? Like, they're really quite demanding. But that shifted and changed for me. So then the whole prospect of dating became a very different agenda, so to speak, because now I was looking for a husband and a father of my children and somebody to partner with in my life, and that changed the concept of my sobriety in a great many ways. And that wasn't an easy task, and simultaneously I had grown up. I had, as I said, I'd gone back to school, and it wasn't successful, and I started a business, and it was funny that the business I ended up starting was a result of me making my 9th step amends to somebody. And so I will reflect back that everything that has happened in my sobriety has been a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. Everything good has transpired through coincidental or mysterious unfolding of events. And so I ended up I opened a chocolate candy and ice cream store, and I ran that store for 15, almost 20 years. And that was a big part of my sobriety, a big part of my identity. It gave me some financial success and some stability, and it enabled me to be fully self-supporting through my own contributions, which was not what I thought the Tradition 7 was about. And I am really grateful. I was talking earlier in the green room about the traditions, and in my keeping it fresh now and moving forward, doing a tradition study and how the traditions apply in my personal life is one of the goals for the upcoming future, because I think there's a real value there that I haven't noticed in AA recently, but it certainly was a big part of my early sobriety. So I did end up meeting my husband, and again, it was one of those synchronistic. It was at a conference, and it was out of town, and we met, and we had dinner and went out, and I didn't think I would ever see this man again, because he didn't live in Toronto. He lived in Washington, and he was traveling, and so there was a freedom there. I was able to be 100% honest, because there was no risk, there was no gain, there was no impression management, there was no, well, I have to say and do this to maybe find out or trick you into telling me whether or not you want to get married and have baby. Like, there was none of that. I just let it, and I remember saying to my sponsor at the time, you know what, it was the weirdest thing. When I was 100% honest with no agenda, that was when I attracted the person who was to be my husband and the father of my children. How did that work? Like, I was just puzzled by this concept. And it turns out that there is a value, and that is a pattern in AA, that kind of honesty, like when I did my amends and ended up, opening my business with the person who I did the amends to. It's just quite miraculous when that happens. And I do believe that it's the magic of AA. And certainly, I call it magic. Some people call it spirituality. Some people call it God. Some people just call it fate. Some people just don't call it anything and call it life. But so I ended up getting married, got pregnant right away. Actually, it's the other way around. I got pregnant and then I got married. But I was pushing 40, so, that biological time bomb was ticking loud. So it was like not something that I was willing to wait for. And I had a healthy, happy baby boy. And so my recovery took on a new complexion. And in that period of time, as a mother and as a business owner and as a wife and as a family member, my parents and my sisters and my nuclear family was all quite close with me at the time. So my recovery then took on a slightly different. So I wasn't going to 2 meetings a day, 7 days a week, and flitting off to conventions and going to dances till 2 in the morning, or drinking coffee at Fran's until 4 in the morning, or any of that. I went to my home group once a week, and that was the pattern of my sobriety. And what that did was that allowed me to be a mother and a wife, and again, it goes back to the traditions where it's like the newcomer is the most important person in the room, and that was my son. He was the newcomer to the planet. So I was able to apply the things that you guys taught me here and the things that I practiced in meetings to my family life and to being a mother, and it was important. And I think I was somewhat successful at it, and I made some mistakes, and I did some things right. So that period of time was really a bit of a blur, in all honesty, because I was tired. I was old, right? It was exhausting. So, and I was working full time, and my husband at the time wasn't well, and so that added another layer of stress and complication to the relationship. I'm trying to think how I can say this, but again, it's that honesty, and I asked for the courage. So the relationship dissolved? No, we got divorced. It was a shit show. It really, it turned out that it was just beyond insane. And what I did in that insanity, when I just couldn't see a way out, I went to Al-Anon. And I did about a 5-year stint in Al-Anon, and I am so grateful for our sister program and the sanity that it allowed me to internalize. And I still to this day believe that Al-Anon is the reason that my son loves his dad, and for whatever reason, I have really nothing but good feelings and wishing and wanting for good things in his life. And there are other people who didn't do any of the stuff that he did to me, or I did to him, or however it transpired, depending on the day, that I still haven't resolved and gotten that level of forgiveness for. But somehow, for this man, I was able to do that. And I do thank Al-Anon for that, because it was an important part. I was talking last night to an Al-Anon member, and it was after about that 5-year point when things had kind of leveled out, managed. We were divorced. I was a single mom. I had gotten, some of the stability back in my life, and I said, you know what? But I knew, Al-Anon, you weren't my people. you were really nice and you were really polite, and I missed the vibrancy and the insanity and the joy and the intensity and the drama. They didn't laugh at my stories. They just didn't think they were that funny. You guys will laugh when I talk about the police being called and him running out in a towel and naked, because I'm like, it's just the insanity. And this is in sobriety when all that shit show happened. So, you know, you're laughing now, and yes, we know that there's some humor to it, but that you're laughing because it's a way that we heal. And I think the humor is something that's really important in AA and for my healing. And it's not to take away from the seriousness of some of the things that we've done and said, but it's also a way that we can heal from it and not shut the door on it, not regret the past. That's a line in the book, though, that I'm still on the fence about. There is some regret in my past, mostly from where I'm at right now, financial and real estate regret. If you live in Toronto, houses are expensive. And I think, oh, it was always, yeah, I'll get another, but that's just not happening. So there is some regret, and there is an opportunity for new things to happen in my future. So, where am I at today? So after the divorce, you know, I was a parent and a single mom, and again, Alcoholics Anonymous was what supported me and gave me the tools for parenting and supported me through the journey of parenting an adolescent boy who was not easy, and I didn't know what to say to him. And the men in the program certainly gave me a lot of insight and guidance indirectly. So where am I at today? There was just one thing I'm going to backtrack on, and it's the guidance from my mom, and I think it applies to parenting, but it applies to Alcoholics Anonymous as well. And I use her line, Brenda, you don't get the credit or the blame. You are his mom, and he is born that way. And I take that into a lot of my friendships and sponsorship roles. I don't get the credit or the blame for somebody staying sober or for somebody drinking. That is just not in my power. And so that is guidance and advice that I say often, and I thank my mom for all of the time, because that has served me well over the years, and it keeps my ego in check. So, and that self-centeredness and that ability for people to be who they are, regardless of what I might think they should do. And I do have a lot of life experience that may or may not benefit somebody if they're asking for advice or not, but I will give them that life experience, and sometimes I just call them the Brenda facts. So they're made up Brenda facts that because they were my experience, I've just made them everyone's experience. So right now there's sort of a transition. My son's going to be 22, he's graduating from university, and for the first time I'm feeling the grief of an empty nest. That is what it is. I can't call it or make it anything different. So that's something that I'm going through right now. My challenge in Alcoholics Anonymous, I joined a big book study, and I'm definitely not a fan of the big book, and that has not been my experience over the decades. But my ego said, well, why don't you do the big book study, and that way you can find out what everyone's talking about, and then your opinions will have a little more weight, right? And so what I've noticed so far is I have a steel trap closed mind, and it is a real difficult process for me to stay in this big book group. But you know what? It's also a demonstration of my open-mindedness. So I'm hopeful that something at the end of this, when I look at it in retrospect, because that's how recovery happens. Recovery happens backwards. You look back and you see the lessons. You rarely get the lessons in the moment. So my hopefulness for all of you is that recovery stays fresh so that you stay in AA regardless of where you're at, and that all of the things that AA can give you are useful and helpful to your sobriety. So thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Brenda. That was awesome. I could certainly identify with your comment about having kids later in life. I should have talked to you before that decision. And now it's my pleasure to welcome my friend Mel from the Hill for his interpretation.
Thanks, bud. Hi, everybody. My name is Mel, and I'm an alcoholic. And it's good to be here, and it's good to be sober. And I'm going to start right off with a step 10. And I was asked to speak here and sent the email, and I knew what I was supposed to do. And I've done this a number of times. So you're supposed to go to the green room, right? At 8:15, meet with everybody else and make sure you're all here, and then get walked in and everything. Do I do that? No, I just come in here. There's nobody here. I'm saying to my friends there, nobody's here. Maybe I'm going to have to chair. So I come up front. I'm sitting here. Anyway, at 8:25, they come and got me and took me to the green room and brought me back in. So, Michael, I'm sorry. I probably gave you some fright. I didn't mean to. And Brenda, what a great job. Thank you for your story. Thank you very much. When I speak, like just as my story or whatever, I always talk about love. I think love is so important. I'm so glad you brought it up. And AA, we come to AA. They say our problem wasn't alcohol; it was our total inability to form meaningful relationships with another human being. And so why we come here, we get sober, and we look for relationships, and why not? And what do they say about AA? That you can find love where the odds are good, but the goods are odd. They'll say that. But and I did just what you did too. And I just and still don't know that how you could be such a pretty girl and you could own a chocolate ice cream and something store, and I didn't know you until now. But anyway, it's another thing. So anyway, my name is Mel. I come from the Hill Group, or I'm a member of the Hill Group. My old service sponsor, Joe Downey, I used to say, my group's the Hill Group. He'd say, it's not your group. So now I say I belong to the Hill Group. It meets on Thursday evenings at 8:30. It's a great group. It's an old group, and it's a big group. Come on out. I'm almost always there, and I'd be glad to meet you and sit you down. You can sit with me or if you want. Whatever. When I first came into AA, I've been around a little while. When I was about 3 or 4 years sober, there was a group I used to go to out in the East End. I'm from the West End, but it was in the East End. And I think it was called the Main Group, and this guy comes up to me, he says, you know what, I think you're foolish. You know what? And I was only a couple of years sober, so it's actually probably a miracle that I didn't just haul off and hit him. But I said, why? And he said, because you're always happy. And that's bullshit, And I said, well, I am. I am. I'm so happy to come into AA. I'm happy to this day. Every day in AA for me has been better than the day before, and it's the truth. I'm standing here up here. I'm not making it up. So when I'm in an AA meeting, when I'm not in an AA meeting, sometimes I don't get great days. But anyway, and that's funny because I think when we came into AA, we are the original partiers. I mean, all the people in this room, really, I'll bet. If we were all drinking right now, you'd all like a party. Or you'd carry it on farther than it should, or you'd just, I think we're the original partiers, and so we come in here. So how, and we get sober, and that's a new experience to get cleaned up and stuff. But nobody liked a good time better than us. So we come in here, we spend a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, and now all of a sudden we're around a little bit. 2 years, starting to get a little, Anyway, I think that's what this panel's about, keeping it fresh over time. And nobody could have been a better pick than me, because I love AA and I love keeping it fresh and I love doing things, and my program's fun and I like it. So what I thought I would talk about here today would be people, places, and things. And that's what we have, and that's what we talk about in our meetings. And so let's talk about people. At the General Service Conference, when you go there, they tell you to, you're there for a week and you're with this number of people and in kind of auditorium seating, and they tell you to, every time you get up and go out, maybe for coffee or, when a break is called, you come back and you sit with another person. That's what you do. And then you go out again for lunch and you come back and you sit with another person. And I want to tell you, does that work? At the end of the conference, or even after the end of a couple of days, like 50 people, all. and this happened at my very first ORC. I met a girl, a lady at a greeting. She was greeting, and I had a long talk with her. I was all new and fresh, and she was too. And there was nothing, no attraction, nothing. There wasn't that. But it was, and she's my friend to this day. And I made such a friend. And you know what? I was going to try and do this, but I don't know if it's a good idea because it's kind of church-like. But if you look to the person to your left and to the person to your right, look left and right. Do you know the people? Do you know who's beside you? Well, no. Do you know them? Say hello. Say hi. Just do it. Say it. Say it. Yeah. Now, I hate people who do things like that. But on the other hand, I will charge you right now. Over the course of this weekend, look for this person, whoever it is, look for them and say hi. Saw you on that 8:30 panel. And you know what? You meet a new person, keeping it fresh. I mean, we are a program, it's one alcoholic talking to another. How much more fresh can it be than talking to a new person? There's in terms of people, what comes to mind too is start a step study, start a tradition study, start a concept study. We all talk about things like this, but it's how you get to know someone. When I came in, they told me to get a home group, and my understanding of a home group is it's a place you say, I'm going to be there every week. I'm going to be there if it's Thursday and Monday. I'm going to be there every Thursday and every Monday. I'm not missing that group. I can go to all sorts of other groups, but I'm never going to miss my home group. And why? It's because it's where you form meaningful relationships with another human being. It's where you don't want to say it. It's where some people call you on your stuff. They say, "Where were you last week?" Or, "How's that deck you're building?" Or, "You still married to Sally?" And all sorts of inappropriate things. But so that's what your home group is. So if you start a step study, imagine if you've never been to one and you're trying to do the steps anyway, start one. Get 2 or 3 or 5 or 8 people and just start a step study. There's all kinds of them online, because then, and do it outside the group. You get to know people. You'll get to know them intimately. A tradition study. If you're interested in service at all at the district level or beyond, start a tradition study. My sponsor, Dan, the wisest guy in the world, almost, if I ever have a problem, he almost starts off with, or if he wants to know how I'm doing, he says, "How are your relationships?" It's a stock line for him. How are your relationships? How are you? And it could be with the guy at the gas station, or it could be with your wife or your husband. How are your relationships? And the traditions are a great way to, they apply. They can put the rubber to the road there. The concepts, maybe not a lot of people know about the concepts unless you're sort of deeply involved in service, but they're very important. It's how AA faces the world. Find yourself an old tired ex-delegate like me or some other person who's got a good handle on the concepts and form a concept study. They can be very boring, but on the other hand, you can make anything interesting, can't you? Really? I think so. Places. What about your home group? We're talking about keeping things interesting. Always go up and thank the speaker at your home group, right? I don't know if you do that. Not a lot of people do, and I don't, unless I think about it. But go up and say thank you. Thank you for your talk. Thank you for speaking. And so that's nice on a couple of angles. But first off, ask them where their home group is, what their home group is, and then go to their home group. Like, meet them, right? So you say, "Oh, I know Joshua. He's a member of the Big Book group," and and then go to the Big Book group and say, "Hey, I heard you speak at the Hill last night. It was really great. You did a great job." You're creating a relationship. I had a problem maybe a couple of years ago. I was going through something in my own life. We won't talk about that, but we will talk about. I said to myself, "Well, I'm going to do 40 and 40." Remember that? They tell you to do 90 and 90 when you come in. I said I'm going to do 40 and 40. Now, I didn't, but I did about 35. And boy, did I feel better. My problems all went away, right? So keeping it fresh. How do you keep it fresh? I was actively, anyway, it was just sinking in. It was inculcating. Go to new groups. Go to a group you've never been to before, or a group that you've heard about. Just pick one. It doesn't even matter. Or go to a new group. There's a group at Dufferin and Bloor that started maybe about a year ago. I don't even know what the name of it is now, but it's a nice little group, and they're starting, and they're finding their way, and they're doing different things, and there's people there you probably know because they migrate from other groups. Just go to a different group, meet somebody. I mean, go out of town, go to Coburg, And there's a couple of great meetings in Cobourg. Go to Pickering, go to Barrie, go to Hamilton. You don't have to go very far. There's all sorts of different groups out there, and go meet some new people. And then there's the whole country AA versus city AA. That's always a fun thing to do. Go do some country AA. And maybe people in the room here, maybe there's some country AA people in the room, and they're here for the city AA today, but it's different, and it's good, and it's keeping it fresh, and it mixes it up, and it makes it interesting. Vacationing, Brenda mentioned it. I do that too. I love going to meetings on vacation. I spend a lot of time in Costa Rica, and there's a couple of meetings in Costa Rica that I love. They would be my home groups if I didn't have a home group here, but you might say they're my home groups there. And they're just interesting, and there's lots of different people that go, people from all over the world, and they have a different take on things, and so it's great to do that. You can engineer group events. If you're in a group, you might not be one of those let's get a gang together and all go, somewhere. You might not be that type. But you could get yourself in the way of that kind of type of person and get something going. I have sponsees. I can't find a girl. You don't find a girl. Just put yourself in the way of girls. Right. So, you'd be surprised what happens. I mean, if you don't do that, nothing ever will happen. So maybe maybe you are the type that could put together a bowling night. Hey, we're all going bowling on Tuesday night. Or there's a fellow in my group, Dougie. Last year he put together a big baseball game. He bought 25 Blue Jays tickets, and we all went. And it was a great day. And so that's an outing. That's an extracurricular thing. So that's places, things. You could advertise a little bit. I thought about saying this, but I probably shouldn't. But my sponsee, Billy, well, he gave me a sticker. See, it's an AA sticker. And I don't normally do this, but I put it on my phone. And now when I'm in a coffee shop, my phone's on the table, and I actually had somebody come up and say, "Friend of Bill's," So they're kind of advertising. I don't really mean to. I didn't do it consciously. I used to have a bumper sticker on my car. At the back it said, "Protected by Smith & Wilson." But I haven't got the car anymore, but I never got into too many fights with people because either they were AA members or they thought I was. Anyway, another thing that I've done over time is write an article for the Better Times, or write an article for the Grapevine. I've done both and had both published. For the Better Times, I wrote an article on singleness of purpose, and I likened it to an ant. And you know how an ant goes walking along, and then it comes up to a stick, right? And it turns left or it turns right. And anyway, you can look up the article. It's a very good article. And I wrote one for Grapevine. I wrote a couple for Grapevine, but one was how to be a man in AA. See, we were having some problems at the Hill group there for a while, and there was a little bit of stuff going on, and I thought somebody should write an article on what is, 13 stepping, all that stuff. They didn't publish it though. They shy away from things like that in the Grapevine, although the Better Times might have published it. I think they might have, but. Or you can get involved at the area. There's a district if you want to be your general service rep at your group, or you can get involved in the area. And the area assembly is April 5, 6, and 7 in Kingston, just coming up. Take the train down, take a car down, get a bunch of people. It's our area. It's all AA between here and Pembroke and upstate New York, and it's a lot of AA going on there. And I think you'd like it. Or maybe you would. So, and what about you? Just you alone. Now, I've talked about your group and other groups and other people. Well, offer to chair a meeting. Offer to chair a meeting at your group. That mixes it up. That gets you excited. Then you got to find a speaker. Take a sponsee to a meeting and go to a service meeting and see if you can find a place that you can speak there. There's lots of service meetings, or go to your district, ask your GSR. I just took a service meeting on at CAMH for, April 28th or something. And so it's a Sunday night. And then I'm going to get a bunch of guys and we'll all go shoot some pool before that. And then we'll go to the meeting and it'll just be a fun night. Hopefully. At the Hill, I built a service pole. You say, what's a service pole? Do you remember MASH, when they had that big pole where it said New York and. Well, I built one at the Hill. If you come to the Hill, you'll see the service pole. And it says 12 steps, GSR, General Service Conference. And I built a pole, and they bring it out every night. Something I did. And sometimes I carry it down from the stage, and it's the signs, they have little pointed edges. And I sometimes think if I fall off the stage and if I kill myself with the pole, they'll say service killed him. But anyway. So you could do that, or somebody built you go to the Lakeshore group. There was a guy. I guess they celebrated 50 years as a group. So somebody there was a sign maker. One of those signs that they make at cottages. The Thompsons and. Well, he was one of those guys. So he made a big pole, and it said all the slogans on that, and it said the slogans, and it said 50 at the top because the group was 50 years old. But when I went, now that has become a slogan, 50. I used to drink 50. I crawl across 50 miles of broken glass for a beer. But 50 has become a slogan. Anyway, what was the common theme of everything maybe I'm talking about here? It's action. Take an action. Take an action. What have you done lately? What have you done to take action except just to be grumpy? Somebody asked me out there, how's somebody, or I'm not going to say his name, how's somebody? I said, well, he's turned into a grumpy old man. And they said, yeah, he was a grumpy old man before. And I said, yeah, and he's worse now. And but anyway, that's that guy. But you got to rub up against people. You got to make things exciting. You got to switch it up a little bit, But action is the key. You're no treat for a newcomer if you're just not happy, and if you're a drudge, And I said it earlier, we came here to get sober, not somber, and we're supposed to be happy. And you walk into, and what are the best meetings you go to? The ones you walk in the door and just the energy level is up, And so we all have an obligation there. I've been on a warpath lately about the 12 steps, saying that the first 11 steps are for me, they're for Mel, they're for my recovery, but the 12th step is an obligation. Well, it's an obligation. When I come into AA, I signed into that. I bought in. My job is to carry the message. So I don't have a choice there. I kind of been on that warpath lately. But the way you carry it, when you come to the ORC, man, the excitement level, the energy level in this whole place here is wild, right? And there's a guy, I sponsor a guy named Billy, and he has an Uncle Rick. And Uncle Rick's in the program too. And Uncle Rick used to, he would run his sobriety via the ORC. Like his year started now, and he would buy a new shirt, and he would get a room at the ORC, and he would come to every meeting, and he would buy all the tapes, and he would do a 4th and 5th step. This was his new year, right? It's not like January 1st. It's like, whatever, March 28th. And so, and I think there's a lot of people that do that. And when you leave here, the welcome group, typically on a Sunday night, used to be in the old days, the welcome group would be slammed. There'd be 500 people at the welcome group. I don't know, and they're all buzzed because it's a Sunday night meeting. The ORC ended. Everybody was just all tanked up. And I don't know if it's that way anymore, but if you can carry over whatever it is whatever nectar you're receiving here, if that's what you like and want, do it. And the newcomer coming in will feel it. He or she will just feel it vibrating off you. And I think that's how you keep it fresh. Thanks.
Wow, how about that? That was a good way to kick off a Saturday morning, right? I'm a firm believer in the phrase that the opposite of addiction isn't recovery, it's connection. And I think what you heard here tonight or this morning was a lot of talk about getting connected and staying connected. So the ORC is a great place to do that, and please carry it forward. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists? And they were both very disciplined because we do have time for Q&A, for questions.